Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Analysing Anfield, your tactics and analytics podcast, courtesy of the Public Channel. I'm Josh Williams, and I'm joined by David Hughes. Dave, how's your week been, mate?
Yeah, good mate. I enjoyed the football. Lots going on this week, especially in the Champions League. Uh, you know,
Have you
some
recovered from Friday?
um, less said about that the better, mate. But yeah, a few tired days, but I think I'm just about over it now.
Yeah, well, we are back to football, obviously. Liverpool have got plenty going on, and we obviously have Manchester City over the course of the weekend, and we have them again. And before we next appear on this podcast, we're probably going to have Man United as well, and Liverpool have played in the Champions League. So, fair bit to get through this episode. Um, but I think we'll start with general thoughts on the surprise opponents that we now have in the Champions League semis. Uh, Villarreal, mate. What are your thoughts on this? Surprised?
Yeah, definitely surprised. I think it's a fantastic opponent for Liverpool. I think it's worked out very well because I know Villarreal obviously saw off Bayern, and they saw off Juventus before that, if I remember correctly. So you certainly can't underestimate them. But you know, based on the numbers, you're looking at a team who are probably around maybe the fourth, but somewhere between the fourth and seventh best team in the league of this season. And given that Liverpool have done very well against the best of most divisions they've come across this year, I think this is just a perfect tie for them, especially at this stage of the competition. I think it would have been a good opponent, maybe in the round of 16, but to have this opponent in the last four is it's a great turnout for them, and I'm fully backing Liverpool to now reach the Champions League final.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to go all galaxy brain, do we? And start making out that it's better. Start making out that they're a really, really tough opponent because although they've got obvious strengths, which we will touch on in a sec, it's still very rare in the Champions League semi-finals, and that just doesn't really happen very often. What I will say, mate, is a little bit of a pat on our back, maybe. I do think we kind of flagged that Bayern Munich are not what they appear to be, maybe according to certain media outlets, maybe. I did think they'd get the progression, don't get me wrong, but I didn't expect them to cause Liverpool too many problems, Bayern Munich, this year. And the fact that they only scored once over two legs against Villarreal, I think kind of summed that up.
Yeah, yeah. I must admit, I was still very surprised that's how it panned out. And to be fair, if you have a look, they did kind of arguably they were a little bit unlucky to not score more. But yeah, if you can only score one goal against Villarreal over two legs, then you deserve to go out, don't you? So it was just a big shock. I didn't expect it. I agree with the point you're making, but I just thought he'd have too much for them.
Well, I did look at the game because I did a piece on it, so I had a little detailed look at the game, actually, the Villarreal game against Bayern. And to be honest, I was pretty impressed. And I think two elements of the game, two stats maybe, that kind of highlight how good Villarreal are in terms of their defensive game as part of a block. Over the course of the two legs, Bayern took 24 shots from outside the box, which is obviously not good. And in terms of crosses, they hit, I think it was 32 crosses in the game. And across the whole season, their previous high, I think it was 26. So Villarreal obviously made them shoot a lot from long range, which is not ideal. And they made them cross a lot, probably aimlessly into the box. So I think those two little stats there on their own almost epitomise what you're probably going to come up against when it comes to Villarreal. How it's going to be very much Liverpool breaking down a block for 90 minutes, potentially 180 minutes. Don't concede first, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that'll be exactly what it is. You don't really want to give them anything to hold on to. In an ideal world, you get that first goal. Villarreal probably have to come out and play a little bit, and I think when you compare the two teams man for man, you know Liverpool by far got the better quality, so I expect that would conveniently open the game a little bit more for Liverpool, and it could go on to be a comfortable kind of two-legged victory. I mean, it sounds like I'm being really dismissive over Villarreal. You know, they're clearly a good side and they have had some big wins, but I just think, you know, if you consider where Liverpool are at this season, I struggle to see how they caused them too many issues. Barring, as you said, maybe if they were to score off the first attack and then Liverpool would just have a really poor attacking performance where they just weren't very efficient, then maybe that happens. But even then, you could imagine that over 90 minutes, but over 180, I think the quality would eventually rise to the top.
Yeah, I mean, just another little nod towards Villarreal, to be fair to them. When I did look into the numbers of the La Liga season, so just the Spanish La Liga, if you remove Real Madrid and Barcelona, Villarreal are top for passes into the box per match, progressive passes per match, dribbles per match, progressive carries per match, through balls per match. So they do have something there. I don't wanna play them down too much and make out that Liverpool are going to do this walking pace. I do think they are a good side this season. I think they're very similar to Atletico Madrid actually, in terms of being very good as part of a block on the defensive side of the game and able to pose, able to actually play when they get on the ball as well. So it's going to be an interesting one, but I do expect Liverpool to probably have too much in this case. One thing I did find interesting, Dave, is again, similar to Benfica, the number of ex-Premier League players who are playing for them. We've seen it.
Yeah, but it seems to be an even lower caliber compared to
yeah,
Benfica. Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think off the top of me. I think that I remember seeing, um, obviously Moreno there. There was who was at Watford. What was his name?
Capoue,
Yeah, Capoe's there. Trying to think.
Sergio Aurier is there.
Oh, I didn't know he was there.
Yeah, Juan Foyth is
Foyth,
there. He
yeah,
was
I
at
remember Foyth.
Spurs.
Yeah, yeah.
There's more. I'm going to say there's Arnaud Danjuma, who is not a flop. To be fair, he is a good player.
No,
Liverpool
no,
were
no.
actually linked with him.
Yeah, I've talked about him before from a Liverpool perspective. Interesting player. He was at
Yeah,
Bournemouth, wasn't he? And he's kind of went there. And I must admit, I haven't looked at him the last couple of months. But when I wrote about him, you know, maybe 2 3 months ago, he'd hit the ground running there, and he kind of really scaled up his output in, you know, a top European league. So I don't know if maybe there's still legs in that one eventually.
yeah. Well, they've got Chuck Weezy as well. He's another
Mm,
player who I've wrote about in the past. I think we've mentioned on this pod a few times because he's
yeah.
left-footed. So he's an interesting one. They also have Giovanni Lo Celso, who was at Spurs again,
Mm,
and Francis Coquelin, who was at Arsenal. So we and Unai Emery, of course, who was
yeah.
in the Premier League. So a weird
It's like
mishmash of
it's a bit of a North London graveyard, isn't it?
it is a bit, yeah, yeah. It's like a Premier League 11 that you're gonna forget in a couple of
Yeah,
years' time.
a
Like it's
forgettable 11.
yeah, but obviously, I mean, credit to Emery for getting them to play as part of a functional unit in a way, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting one. We'll obviously delve into a little bit more closer to the tie, but according to 538, Dave, Liverpool and Manchester City are both 42% on to win the Champions League. So it's looking like it could be a Liverpool City final.
Am I right in saying it's obviously City and Madrid, isn't it?
Yeah, Real Madrid, yeah.
Yeah. What I would say is that City are a better side than Madrid, clearly. But Madrid just have something weird in this competition, don't they? So
Yeah.
I find that game a little bit tougher to predict. I couldn't predict who Liverpool are going to play as a sure it'd be City, but you know Madrid do have it up the sleeve in this competition. Who would you
Yeah.
rather get?
I'd rather get Real Madrid every day of the week. Not
Would
even
you? Yeah.
close. Yeah. I absolutely do not want City. That game, I mean, we might as well start it now. That
Yeah.
game at the Etihad, that was painful. That
Mm,
they are a tough team to play against, mate. They're so good, honestly. I know they've had tons and tons of money pumped into the club and stuff like that, but so have Man United. You know, so have Everton. No offense, mate. Um, what Guardiola's done there in terms of the team he's coached, how good they are tactically, how good they are technically. I mean, they are really, really top level. And obviously, on this show, we talk about the analytics, we talk about the numbers, and maybe a lot of shows like this maybe would play down the mental elements of the game. But I think certainly in the first half, the mental side of the game was on show more than ever. I thought some of Liverpool's really established leaders just seemed to stop playing or seemed to panic when they were presented with easy decisions to make. I thought it was a difficult game. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was a really high quality game, as is always the case. We talked in the build up to the show that these fixtures, 10 years ago, the top sides tended to be really cagey affairs and, would often disappoint. In this Klopp Guardiola era, these games between City and Liverpool have rarely done that. They always seem to be phenomenal, always deliver. I thought the same against Sunday. In terms of City, to me, it felt like they were as close as you get to perfect in terms of what they were doing with them without the ball. I thought that was arguably the best version you'll get of them. I thought Liverpool done fairly well. I like what Liverpool do without the ball. I think they do minimise the threat as much as you can. But the problem was City was just so good. And it was a really good result, I think, all things considered for Liverpool. Yeah, I know Liverpool would have preferred to win, try and get the title back in their hands, so to speak. But I think the form City were in that day, the way the game was going, the way it could have went a couple of times, with the tight offside, etc. It was probably best to come away with a point and see if the battle can be won elsewhere over these next 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah, I'm actually on the back of it a little bit disappointed with Liverpool. I mean, I'm not sure how disappointed I can be considering the level of the opponent, the level of the status of the game and things like that, the importance of it. But I just felt Liverpool. I was just a little bit disappointed. Like, for me, I think we've played City now twice over the course of the season, home and away. Both first halves have been horrendous. And you could argue over the 180 minutes, Liverpool have played well, maybe for a total of 45 minutes potentially combined. And when we play well, City really do struggle because they're not used to playing against a team that are brave and bold on the ball, who are willing to play through their lines, pin them in. When Liverpool do it, it causes them major issues. But for whatever reason, we have froze a little bit against them this season, and that's one of the reasons why I would dread the potential final against this team. But I do think that if you look at the quality of the game, I know the perception of it is that it was thrilling, it was entertaining and stuff like that. I actually felt the Etihad clash in 2018-19 was a higher standard personally for me. Maybe I've got to watch it again.
Yeah, but I think maybe that might be because you probably thought Liverpool brought more to the table in that game, whereas this game maybe you touched on already. There was players who weren't the best. I thought Fabinho in particular struggled. I was trying to think why that was, and if you can't, although City did like the 4-3-3, it was a bit like a 4-2-3-1 at times with De Bruyne kind of having this free role, and he kept seeming to get in those areas either side of Fabinho, causing him a few issues. So I think that maybe that plays into it, and obviously you're really looking forward to Thiago playing in such a big game. I thought by his standards he wasn't really at his best, so that probably tied into it. But as you said, it's just really hard, isn't it? Because it's hard to see how much you apportion on Liverpool in terms of maybe not being at their very best, but also is that a consequence of just how good City are at home as well? Because it's the Etihad. I know it has a bit of a reputation as people make jokes about them not selling out this and that, but it has become a difficult place to go and win football matches. And I know teams have gone and done it, lower teams, your Palaces or your Tottenhams, but obviously there's an edge when Liverpool come. There's an added motivation, and it kind of feels like City now have done a good job of creating a bit of a much tougher environment for Liverpool to go and win there. In the league, there hasn't been a win there since, was it Klopp's first game? I know there was the Champions League victory there, but
Yeah. I'm not sure, to be honest. It might have been Klopp's first game. I remember that match, and obviously there was the Champions League game as well. But in that match, Liverpool had the lead. City had to go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Which obviously changes the dynamic a little bit, doesn't it? So yeah, I think it's a tough place to go, and that's why I'm just saying, if you throw all that in, I think looked at, so that it's probably not a bad point, and keep the race alive.
Well, I did say before the game, didn't I? People were portraying it as the title decider. I said it. I think it could be if City win, because the gap would be 4 points. But I thought if Liverpool were going to win, gap's only 2 points. That can still change very quickly. So I didn't think it was going to be decided if Liverpool won the game. I thought it might have been if City did. Obviously, we ended up drawing, so we kind of keep playing. Just for a bit of context on how close it was, I suppose the expected goals on the day, City posted bang on 2, Liverpool posted 1.1. Liverpool obviously didn't create much, only 6 shots to City's 11. But I suppose you could argue the 6 shots that Liverpool did create were relatively close to goal. They were relatively clear cut. Scored a few tap ins and stuff. So, yeah. One of the main things. Go on.
I was going to say, yeah, on that, I just think it really helps that Liverpool just tend to be efficient in key moments, doesn't it? You know, that's one
Yeah.
thing I do think they have over City. They have an efficiency in front of goal that can be decisive, and I do think they're better at City than that.
Yeah. Any surprises by the 11, by the way? Obviously, we were a bit stumped when we were coming to terms with the team last week. I personally didn't think Diaz would start. He didn't. That wasn't a surprise for me. Mane plays and Jota plays, and Bobby was on the bench.
Yeah, I think I thought, I might have said it on the show, I thought maybe Bobby might have got the nod and he went with the traditional front three, with the idea of maybe bringing Jota and Diaz on.
Yeah.
I guess I guess Jota basically kind of reinforced why he starts those games, because again, you know, he doesn't necessarily put on a spectacle, does he? But when the chance comes to him, you know, a big chance in a big moment, he scores, and he just keeps doing it, you know, every week when he's called upon, and that's
He's just
becoming a
always there,
really,
isn't
yeah, just becoming a really important trait.
he? Yeah. I mean, one of the main elements I want to touch on regarding the game is I sent a newsletter out on this yesterday. Every now and then, Klopp comes with a surprise. Pep comes with a surprise. Obviously, Klopp came last season with the 4-4-2. And this season, I think one of the reasons Liverpool looked so bad defensively is because City, kind of out of nowhere, came with direct passes. Klopp referenced it after the match. He said they were a bit more direct than they usually are. When Hendo or Thiago stepped up, they had to play back passes. But when we didn't do that, it was just like a set piece and they chipped the balls behind our line. For whatever reason, Guardiola's never been too inclined to do them passes. Not sure what it is. But those passes are very, very dangerous. Liverpool have showed that over the years. And considering Liverpool play with such a high line against City, and sometimes kind of hold that line in the middle of the pitch and don't really press City. They kind of wait for them passes into the midfield, and then they can harry the ball and hopefully regain it in the middle of the park and then counter attack. I thought it caused Liverpool major problems playing those passes, and one of the stats that I included in the newsletter, just to kind of capture my point, was across the whole of the current Premier League season. City played 113 high passes in the match. A high pass is a pass that's defined as above shoulder height, at peak height, and they played 113 against Liverpool. That's the second most that they've played in any game all season, except for one, that's against Crystal Palace, and their usual average is 87. So 113 against Liverpool, I think, kind of highlights a bit of a strategic shift, maybe. And obviously, it caused major issues for Liverpool. And I think ahead of the return meeting, the rematch on the weekend, which we can now, I suppose, start talking about, that for me is a major thing for Klopp to, okay, what's the plan for this? Because that was something he wasn't expecting. Now we've got that team again immediately. For me, you have to find a way to cater for that.
Really hard to do though, isn't it? Because we're recording now on Thursday. Benfica was last night, so it'll be recovery day. Then you have tomorrow maybe to do a bit of training, and then the game on Saturday, isn't it? So I do wonder how much time they've had to kind of, because you might have to make adjustments. But that's really hard to do. I think it's really tough. I don't know how they do this because Liverpool have built a structure around playing really high, restricting space in which the ball's played, and then almost inviting balls over the top. But if a team can kind of punish you in the way that they did, or expose you, or at least put elements of risk in there, then it becomes a problem. So I don't know how you combat it in that time. I think it's going to be really difficult, and that could be a big decisive thing on Saturday.
Well, even with time, I'm not even that sure how you combat it. It's kind of one of the reasons it's been so effective for Liverpool is because it kind of poses the question to opponents. Whenever Liverpool facing a team, it's kind of like, okay, if you don't press us but you stay high, we will play balls over the top to you. Whereas if you press us, we will just play around you type thing. And it kind of poses that question now to Liverpool. The Liverpool just kind of go a bit mental and start pressing them high to prevent those passes, because the passes kind of happened when Laporte had like time and space, for example. So the answer you could argue is, well, don't give him time and space. But then if you look at the pressing numbers of the game, Liverpool haven't posted more pressures in any game all season. That was Liverpool's most pressures in a single game. So you can't kind of start suggesting them to do even more, because they did a fair bit of it at the Etihad.
Yeah,
They had changed shape. They had dropped the line. They had dropped the offside trap.
I think the problem with Preston as well, specifically against this opposition, is say you think of Liverpool have got a front three who are pressing. City not only have a back four, so they have one man extra over, but they've also got Edison, who is,
Insane.
yeah, basically, yeah. I think
mean,
Alisson is a better shot stopper, no doubt about it. But I think Edison is unrivaled by anyone in that position with the ball at his feet. We'll probably laugh about what nearly happened with the goal, but
well, to be honest, when I said insane, that was what I was referencing.
yeah,
Although his ball playing ability is also insane, he is
yeah,
also mentally crazy.
insane, yeah. But we saw it where the most cool man in the stadium when he nearly conceded from a mistake. Didn't happen, and I just think what he's capable of, because he can basically be the extra man in possession when you go short, or if you press high, he can clip it over your head into the second line, and he's actually got the potential to go one further as well and go all the way to the attack. So he's a bit like a quarterback in that area. So I think that's why it's much tougher to press City than it is other teams, because you've not only got, say, if it was Liverpool's 3 trying to press against City's 4, which is a one-man advantage, you've then potentially got Edison, which gives you someone else, another free player in possession. So really, really difficult to deal with that.
Yeah, I was thinking potentially is that 4-4-2 an option again now? Because what that would give you would be a front two who could theoretically take care of City's 2 centre backs, if you know what I mean. So when it comes to Laporte or Stones getting on the ball and having time and space, would they have less time and space if Salah occupied Laporte a bit more, and if, say, I don't know, Bobby occupied Stones, and then you've obviously got 2 wide players occupying Cancelo and, well, it might not be Walker now, might it? He seems to be injured. But I don't know. I'm just thinking of potential ways to stop City's centre backs being able to just play those balls over the top at will, because Liverpool usually over the years have allowed those players to just kind of have the ball and have kind of posed the question to them, what are you going to do? And now if they can just play them balls over the top, it's no longer a tactic really for Klopp, is it? You can't just let them have the ball and start doing that.
No, I think another issue is it's when it's to say it's the 4-4-2. You're basically saying to the wing backs, aren't you? Like you have the ball. We'll kind of funnel everything to them. But I mean, think of like Cancelo. Think of the technical ability he has. Really, like how many times this season have you seen him? Well, was it him for the goal, for Jesus' goal, where he whips it into
I
the
think it was, yeah.
yeah. And I remember he scored a similar one against Everton this year, where he whipped it over the top for Sterling. He's so dangerous in that area that it's just really difficult. Lots of headaches, and I'm not sure how you do combat it. I mean, the only way you do combat it is you dominate the ball, and then you haven't got that problem. But that's really hard to do against City, isn't it? even for Liverpool.
I mean, maybe Walker does seem to be injured. So if Walker's out, you've probably got one of Nathan Aki or Zinchenko coming in.
Yeah,
Maybe if one of those plays, maybe you can funnel the ball towards them and let them permanently be the free
yeah,
plays, whoever it is who starts. Because then neither of those two are going to hurt you too much.
no,
So maybe Liverpool could formulate a plan around that. I'm not sure, but that direct passing thing is a new tool for Guardiola. He hasn't used that previously against Klopp, and it caused major damage. It was
mm,
probably the reason why he started with a front three of Sterling, Foden, and Jesus. Three
yeah,
players who are arguably the most similar to Liverpool type forwards, if you know what I mean, in terms of being quick and penetrative, and you know
yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, because then you can be more direct. Like I don't know about you, I didn't think Jesus was going to start. That caught me out, but straight away when he did, I thought, right, what's going on here? Then
Yeah,
he's clearly got something planned. Then you saw very quickly what he was thinking. Having that more that player who can do those runs.
yeah. I must admit, I thought De Bruyne was outstanding. I thought he
Yeah,
was ridiculous, to be honest. And if he doesn't play, that is a big bonus for Liverpool because he's such a threat. He's one of the main fears when you are pressing City high. Because if he receives the ball on the half turn in transition and he's leading their counter attack, the passes he makes on the break are just always so perfect. He always makes the right decision. There was a moment towards the end of the game. He's running towards, say, Trent's side of the pitch, and he plays a pass with his left foot to a player who's running on the up towards the opposite side. If you know what I mean. I think it
yeah,
might have been, was it Mahrez maybe or something like that. And I just remember thinking to myself, how has he even seen that pass? Never mind, executed it.
yeah, yeah. He kind of sees. It's like he has a vision of. I mean, what you forget is, we can see that pass because the angle we have, what we're watching it on. But think about where he is. He's on the pitch. It's everything's eye level. To see those passes, it's just a testament to him. He's a phenomenal player. It's a shame that, well, maybe not from a Liverpool point of view, but it's a shame that he doesn't ever seem to get a true kind of run in the team without having to be out for a little while with injuries because he is unplayable. He's right up there in terms of one of the best in the Premier League. Something I
He's
wanted to ask.
ridiculous, mate. Honestly,
By the
he
way,
might go
go
on.
on. No,
No,
because
no, go on.
I'm going to change subject, so I want to leave it on this sec.
I was just going to say, in terms of like Liverpool opponents, Liverpool face, he's probably. I'm trying to think of any other player who's been as dangerous against Liverpool over the years when he's on the ball. Just the way he receives the ball, how you know he receives the ball and plays the ball so quickly forwards on
Mm,
the half turn. There's no dawdling or anything like that. He's just so difficult to defend against him. I think he's by far and away City's best individual. And if he's not playing, I think he's also the most inclined of City's players to actually deliver with goals and assists. I think
yeah,
the Guardiola's got a load of nice playmakers players like Grealish maybe, who aren't actually inclined to deliver where the actual goal is, but they'll do lots of nice things. I think De Bruyne's got that in his game. So if they're going to lose him I don't know how long it's going to be, whatever it might mean. By the time this podcast comes out, it might be fit again.
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but he's a big loss.
Did on Salah, and I'll bring it up because he was such a heavy topic of this conversation when we were doing the Q&A. Were you a little bit concerned that again he didn't really look too dangerous in that game in City?
I actually thought, watching the game, that Salah's passing in particular was very, very good. I thought
Okay.
he set up Mane's goal, obviously,
Of
that
course.
moment of quality to receive the ball, turn, see Mane's run and play an inch perfect pass.
Mm,
I thought was a real moment of quality. I think he sets up a Jota chance as well with the outside of his foot, potentially, unless I'm getting that one wrong. But I actually thought that Salah had an alright game in terms of his contributions. He just didn't really pose too much of a threat. Um, I'm not overly concerned about him. I don't think it's that much of a thing. Maybe it'll get more and more in his head. Not ideal, but these things just kind of happen. I think. Why did you not think he was particularly good?
No, I thought. again, stuff with the ball, as you've just touched on, look good. Some key passes and key moments, but I never really thought he looked like he was going to score. And the reason I highlight it is because it's been, I think his last goal was against Brighton, and that might have even been a penalty. I can't remember for sure. It's just interesting when someone go through these kind of hot and cold spells, what it does psychologically for them. And with it being such a crucial period, it feels like as backwards as it sounds, because Liverpool need them to be firing to be successful. It kind of feels like this Barron spell will probably be playing into the club's favour a little bit more with the stuff that's going on with the negotiations.
Yeah, I've just looked at Salah's passes that I'm referencing there. He did set up the goal, obviously, and he did set up Jota's shot. I'm not sure if you remember Jota's shot. He kind of Salah plays a ball at the outside of his foot round the corner, and Jota kind of immediately toe pokes it.
Oh yeah. Second half,
Yeah,
Edison, half decent save from Edison, but not that phenomenal.
yeah, but in both of those moments, I thought Salah showed real quality to find his teammate and set them up with an opportunity to score. He has got that in his game, and if he's providing those assists and he's not scoring, maybe he's making up for the loss a little bit. But I think ahead of the weekend, anyway, I think Liverpool's to-do list at the top of it is play more football. I think Liverpool need to stick the chest out basically and start going toe to toe with this team when it comes to actually on the ball, being brave, playing through the lines and things like that, not just hoofing it up long. And I think obviously second on the list for me is to sort out those direct passes that City were making, because they're extremely dangerous and Liverpool didn't have a way around it. It was a major problem. Have you got any thoughts about the rematch? Maybe who will have the edge? Maybe, I mean, Liverpool obviously got the chance to rotate during the week.
Yeah.
Liverpool have been in the country all week. City haven't, and City have now picked up 2 injuries. So I suppose maybe you could argue it's leaning in Liverpool's favour now.
Yeah, it's City. So Padney City players aren't even going home. They've flown straight to London, and they're staying there till the semi-final now. Which again, players aren't getting to see family and stuff. I still think, let's be honest, although they probably edged it from a performance perspective on Sunday, I still think when you go into these fixtures, it can go either way. We're back in a neutral venue as well, which is key.
Yeah.
So I'm probably still 50-50. Maybe Liverpool nick this one. And at least I think at very least I expect a better performance from Liverpool. But still very difficult. Wouldn't surprise me if it was extra time and penalties, given that the teams have played twice and not been separated so far.
Yeah, we'll look forward to it, and I'm sure we'll speak about it next week. But after that game, Liverpool have a Tuesday night fixture with Manchester United. First time since obviously Liverpool beat them 5-0 at Old Trafford. I think before we get into the game, I actually haven't asked your thoughts even outside this podcast. Erik ten Hag, he seems to be the man for them.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on
him? It's tough with United because even the moves that make sense, you always, they've the way they've operated for several years now, you kind of think there's going to be a way that they mess it up, or they do something wrong, important, within the process. But if we try and look at it with a clean slate, I think it's a move. It can be a decent move for them as long as he's, given time to kind of build something in the same way he was at Ajax. Whether he will be at United, I don't know. I think for it to be a success, everything's got to change. The structure's got to change. The recruitment's got to change. They've got to stop focusing so much on, commercial buys is probably the best way to put it, and start, bringing in players who are going to be suited to his philosophy. And maybe they have a chance, but I don't know. Just something about that style of football. I can't imagine it at United, kind of like Ten Hag's Dutch kind of philosophy. So I feel like, I don't know. And I feel like United are a bit like Liverpool in that they probably thrive more with a Klopp type profile as opposed to maybe like a Ten Hag, like that continental style. But
Yeah.
maybe I'll get my eye wiped. Why? What's your thoughts?
Um, on the face of it, I think it's the best appointment I've made since Ferguson.
Mm,
And I think he's the only coach. I think he's the only coach they've appointed since Ferguson who Liverpool and City would also appoint. I think Liverpool would have never appointed Mourinho or Van Gaal, and I think the same applies to City. Moyes, Solskjaer. This is the first coach I think that would get a job at Liverpool and would get a job at City in different circumstances. I do like him. Having said that, it is Man United, and I agree with what you've just been saying. They do have this way about them to just mess it up, basically. And I do wonder over the past couple of years if you'd have put Klopp at United or if you'd have put Pep at United, I'm sure they'd have done better than what we've seen. But how much better? I'm not entirely sure because I've always said I think a manager is so reliant on his recruitment to be on point. And if you look at Klopp, for example, over the years, Klopp has wanted Liverpool to sign Julian Brandt
mm,
before getting convinced by the people around him to get Mo Salah. Klopp has wanted to get Mario Götze before getting convinced by the people around him to pick up, it might have been Sadio Mane back then. So, there's no coach out there really who is kind of all seeing, all knowing type thing.
mm.
You do need help from experts around you. And I think if I don't think they've got that at United. I think it seems to be a little bit jobs for the boys type thing.
Mm.
Um, and the boys don't seem to be particularly clued up,
Good.
at least when it comes to be the modern game and thinking differently and being a bit forward thinking and stuff like that. So I think Ten Hag is a good appointment in isolation, but I think to actually prosper at United lately, past couple of years, is it's not impossible, but it's very very hard.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. You know, and you know, maybe the way they're doing things is going to change. You know, I read a piece this morning where it was saying, recruitment. They've obviously got shortlisted players, dossiers on players, but they're not actually going to progress with any negotiations until Ten Hag's come in. Yeah, and he said, the players he wants for his kind of the way he wants to play, the profiles he needs, and he'll kind of give the final say on who they go for and who they don't. Um, which I think is, maybe different to in the past where, players have been bought behind managers' backs and stuff with, commercial views and in the forefront. So, maybe they are steadily starting to improve, but I feel like I've thought this before with United and then they just don't, they make mistakes again. The best example I thought last year, Sancho looked like it'd be a decent-ish move. Felt like they were doing some decent stuff. They were starting to solidify themselves as a top four side again, and then they went and bought Ronaldo because they didn't want Man City to get him. And it was just like, where do we go in here? It's backwards. So
I know.
they need to stop doing stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, such a terrible signing that. Honestly, the
Mm,
worst. That's like I seen someone tweet saying something like, "That's absolute new age football tactics for Manchester City
mm,
to be pretending to get linked with Ronaldo so that he goes to Old Trafford and basically
yeah.
ruins everything."
So I
Um,
actually thought they were interested, but
Same, yeah, same,
people I've spoke to since then, they were like, sources, quote unquote, have all said what we're laughing about now, that City were never interested.
yeah, yeah. I mean, one thing with Ten Hag, I think he comes across to me a little bit maybe timid is the word potentially.
Mm,
Um, and I think he benefits at Ajax from being surrounded by a really good structure, people who do a lot of they allow him to coach. Essentially, he's very much
yeah,
the coach. And again, at Old Trafford, the spotlight is bright, and in terms of the structure around him, I'm not sure
yeah.
how strong it is. I'm not sure how capable they are. So, in a way, it's a massive risk for him taking the job. I think,
Mm.
but
Suppose
it's
it's
going to
one.
be
It's
massive
hard.
money.
Yeah, I suppose if it's him, no, it's hard to turn down, isn't it? Like, still one of the biggest clubs in
Yeah.
the world. Big project. Um, if he's
What I
being
will say,
told,
I do think they're going to massively benefit. I think he's going to massively benefit from the fact that when he gets there, Paul Pogba will have left, Jesse Lingard will have left, Juan Mata will have left. You've got all these players
Cavani's gonna go.
yeah, Cavani's going. I'm not sure if Ronaldo will even stay.
Yeah.
So he is benefiting from a clean slate there, and a lot of the players who have quite obviously failed and haven't been constructed around in terms of a system are just not going to be there when he gets there. I think that's a massive pick.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the weekend's game, sorry, the Tuesday's
Next
game,
week's, yeah.
um, I mean, I'm confident to say the
Yeah,
least.
yeah. I will be as well. It's you
I
know,
mean, you must have watched them against Everton, Dave.
yeah. I well watched it back, should say. I was obviously at the game myself, but the yeah. I mean, what stands out with this team, if you still look at it, if you pick their best 11, put it down on paper, there's still a lot of quality in that side. For me, there's not many players who you go, he's not at very least a top 8 player. Do you know what I mean? There's good players in the team, but the intangibles, the things that you can't really measure and the stuff that we like to measure with numbers and things. I think that's where they definitely fall down. I think they've got a really, really bad kind of team ethos. I think the character's really poor. Last week, you look at that game. You're going to Everton, early kickoff. The less than 72 hours earlier, they just got beat 3-2. Like a sickening result. Looked like they potentially could be getting sucked right in relegation. And all you'd have to do is go and get an early goal there, and you can go and have a comfortable 3 points. And you don't get beat 1-0. With lots of kind of, I'd say huffing and puffing, but not even that. Just a pretty poor display. And that summed them up for me. That summed up what United are at the moment. So I'm of the opinion there's no way they go to Anfield where they've not won since 2016, 6 years. I can't see them going there and causing this Liverpool team any issues.
No, I can't. I think the occasion will almost take care of itself, but
Yeah.
even if it doesn't, I think
Mm.
Liverpool will absolutely steamroll them. Like even if people consider their attacks to be dangerous, because they've got all these gifted individuals and stuff, but if you look at their attack lately in terms of what they're creating, XG wise,
Yeah.
it's really
It's
not
bad.
much.
Yeah, it's bad,
Um,
isn't it?
if you look at the game against Watford a few weeks ago, they created a good amount. They drew 0-0, funnily enough, but they created a good amount. But since then, they created 0.5 XG against City, 1.1 XG against Spurs, 0.8 XG against Atletico Madrid, 1.4 against Leicester, and 0.8 against Everton. So lately, they're not really generating many chances that are valuable. And those recent fixtures have been against teams that you could argue are half decent. And Liverpool obviously a lot better than that. And I think it's insistent that in terms of Rangnick, when he came in, he had fresh ideas, moved the team towards a 4-2-2-2, tried a 4-4-2, even tried a 4-3-3 at one point. I think it's insistent that, again, yet another Manchester United coach has just fell back onto 4-2-3-1. I think it seems to just revert back to that no matter what. And it doesn't seem to be taking them anywhere. It never seems to benefit Pogba. It's not a system for Pogba, never has been. And they're probably going to play against Liverpool with that formation, which is the formation that they used in the 5-0 loss to Liverpool at Old Trafford when Liverpool absolutely demolished them.
I'm just thinking, right, as you're talking there, I'm thinking, you got. Let's not forget, you got beat 5-0 by one of your biggest rivals in the country. And it could have been worse, let's be honest. It was about 5-0 after.
50 minutes it was, yeah.
Yeah. It was 50 minutes, was it? 50.
50.
So let's be honest, Liverpool could have hit you for 8 on your own patch.
Yeah.
Surely to God, you've got to be so motivated for this return fixture to kind of bring a bit more respect to your club. But you look at this team and you just go, no, there's no chance they'll have any of that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be surprised if it was another like 3 or 4-0, comfortable for Liverpool. And what made me laugh is, again, as you were talking, I was thinking it's true, isn't it? Like Ragnick went in and we were like, okay, he's going to do this. He's going to implement kind of this philosophy. And I think he tries it. But with this group, I think it just becomes a process of kind of banging your head on the wall, and you have to revert to this. You have to revert to a comfort tactic where you get the best of what you can get from them because they won't really give you much else. They're not willing to. They're not willing to change. They're not really willing to evolve as a group. They just want to almost go through the motions. It feels like a little bit. You know, they want to go and stick to the 4-2-3-1 that they know, win some, lose some, and be steady, and that's it. You know, that I think this is why it was a good point that you said a few key players are gone in the summer. I think that's important because that's a rotten group at the moment that it needs a
Yeah.
big shake up.
Yeah, I agree. And I think even in the motivation thing that you've just mentioned, you know, you've got to be very motivated for this game. I think even if they were ridiculously motivated, I still don't think they've got quality, obviously, but I don't think they've got the know-how of how to work as a team to
Mm,
to cause Liverpool problems.
mm,
Um, like when we faced them at Old Trafford, one of the reasons we just demolished them is because they're 4-2-3-1. If you picture the two wide players who were maybe Rashford and I don't know, say it was Sancho, they do players forwards for the whole game, even if they're defending. So if you picture them high on the same line as the striker and potentially the number 10, you can then envisage what the size of the space in the middle of the park looks like for Fred and McTominay to manage. It's
mm.
enormous,
Yeah, it's a
and
lot. Yeah.
Liverpool really targeted that. Firmino played in the match, and Firmino was dropping deeper, linking with Liverpool's front three. And by doing that, they kind of formed like a diamond shape, and the diamond shape formed around McTominay and Fred. And it was, I mean, you try forming part of a two and trying to compete with a diamond.
Yeah, exactly.
you
Yeah, we're
can't, you
just
got no
outnumbered.
chance.
Yeah, outnumbered by elite players.
Yeah, outnumbered, and obviously Liverpool had the better of it in the middle of the park. Really exploited the spaces behind the likes of Rashford and Sancho because they don't track back. And I'm not sure how much of that Rangnick has impacted. There was signs earlier on in the season where he was starting to make a bit of a difference according to numbers and stuff, but lately, since he started facing tough teams again, just back to what it was before, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it looks, to all intents and purposes, you're just kind of still watching Solskjaer's United. If we're being brutally honest, you know,
Yeah,
it looks like the same group. You know, there's been no drastic increase really. Even if the underlying numbers, if you look pre and post, they're very similar. I think at first there was a positive impact, but it's just that's kind of leveled out a little bit now. And I mean, look, all this is great news for Liverpool, isn't it? You know, it means that this is traditionally we've talked about emotional fixtures for Liverpool. You know, United, Everton being a little bit tricky, more so away from home than at home. But you can't, you know, United and Everton are coming up at Anfield, and you're pretty confident going into both.
yeah. I mean, United have got one win in the last 7 matches in all competitions. Obviously, this weekend I think they've got Norwich, so that probably will change. I suppose you never know with United, but that could change. I suppose to pick up a win there potentially. But to round up the show, mate, just for old time's sake, what's your prediction for Liverpool United?
Yeah, I'd a comfortable win actually. 3-0 I'm gonna go with.
Same. That's also mine. Yeah, 3-0.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll bang on the money, or if not, combine those two scores, and
Yeah.
we'll
I've
go 6-0.
just on this subject, who have City got after in the Premier League? Is it
I
Brighton?
think it's Brighton, yeah. And to be honest,
Oh,
I wouldn't put that down as a given. I've
no,
seen
I think
Brighton
that's a
give them
tricky
some
one.
issues.
Yeah, because
Um,
stylistically, Brighton aren't ideal, really, are they? Because the way they play.
yeah, and they cause Liverpool issues. I think the issue is
Mm,
just putting the ball in the net, and
yeah.
if they can do that, potentially I've got a bit of faith, but we never know. But we'll keep going anyway. So Dave, thanks for joining us, mate.
Thank you very much, mate.
Yeah, and we'll be back next week. So do tune in then. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we will see you then.